To make my design boards, I started out with a piece of felt and some heat and bond and the other tools that I have in front of me. I'm also going to be using a 12 by 12 canvas panel. I took the canvas panel and I laid it on my felt, and I'm drawing around the outside edge of the canvas panel. After I drew around the canvas panel, I took it to my cutting mat and I used my ruler to cut approximately a ½ inch away from the drawn line. That way it'll be slightly larger than my canvas panel. Here I took my heat and bond and I cut it into 1-inch strips. I placed those 1-inch strips with the adhesive side down, just overlapping that line I drew. I'm going to press it on, cut it down to the size I need, and I'm going to go around the outer edge, making sure that I just place that heat and bond slightly over that drawn line. I did put some strips of the heat and bond in the center, and now I'm going to be removing the adhesive backing to reveal the sticky side of the heat and bond. I'm going to lay my canvas panel with the rough side against the felt. You can see where I have the ½ inch overlap. I'm going to turn it to the right side. I'm going to put my non-stick pressing sheet underneath so I don't get any of that heat and bond on my wool pressing mat. And I'm just going to take my iron and press the felt onto the canvas panel. Once I got it all pressed on, I just checked the edges, made sure that they were secure. I'm now going to take my cutting mat, turn my canvas panel over, and you can see the wrong side of the panel there. And I'm going to line up my ruler on the edge of the canvas panel, and I'll take my rotary cutter and trim away the excess, cutting right along the edge of the canvas panel. Once I did that, I'm going to test it to make sure that my fabric will stick to the felt. And it does. I also like using the canvas panel because I can press right onto the canvas. Now I'm going to be cutting my strips to do the binding on the outside edge of my design board. I decided to cut my strips at 2-inch, so I lined up the 2-inch mark and just cut the strips. Once I cut the 2-inch strips, I'm now going to join them together. And I'm going to be using a mitered join. Took my friction pen and I'm going to draw the diagonal line from corner to corner. And I'm going to place a pin in to hold it in place until I get to the sewing machine, and I'll sew right along that line I made. After sewing the line, I'm going to trim from that drawn line. Trim off my little dog ears. I'm now going to press that seam open. Once I've got it pressed open, I'm now going to fold the cut edges so they match. Taking my iron, and I'm going to press that whole strip. I'm now going to find the bias join. I'm going to take my canvas panel, lining up the folded edge on the edge of the canvas panel. I'm now going to place some wonder clips at the edges. Fold that strip around the entire panel. When I come to the center of one of the sides where I've run out of the strip, I'm going to mark a line with my friction pen in the center, and that will be where my other bias join is going to be. I'm going to cut that off right along that line. Place that back in place and continue on wrapping the strip around. When I come to the center of the strip where I cut it off, I'm now going to mark exactly where that strip ended, and I'm going to mark a line and take and measure 2 inches from that first drawn line, and I'm going to cut it off, and that will be where my bias join is going to be. I'm now going to remove the strip, place it right sides together, and do another bias join. Make sure you don't twist the strip. Putting in a pin, to hold it in place, and I'll take that to the sewing machine and stitch right along that line just like I did before. Again, I'm going to trim away 1/4 of an inch from that stitching line. Press the seam open, and now I'm going to fold those cut edges so that they match and iron that in place to hold it. I'm now going to take that strip, place it around my canvas panel, and just make sure that it fits. I've removed my strip now, and I'm going to unfold it. And now I'm going to take the bottom cut edge and line it up to that folded edge in the center of the strip. I'll continue around the whole strip until I have that cut edge lined up to that center fold. I'm now going to take a 1-inch strip of cardboard that I have pre-cut, and I'm going to place the edge of that strip along the folded edge that I have just pressed up, and I'm going to fold the other cut edge to match the center. I'm using a 1-inch strip of cardboard so that I have it the exact size, so when I go to put on my heat and bond that it's not going to go over the edges. I've now placed my pressing sheet on my wool cutting mat, and I'm going to apply the 1-inch strips of heat and bond. And where I have to join them, I'm going to lift up one of the edges, place the other one down, and just press it into place. I'm going to continue around the whole strip until I come to the end, and again I'm going to overlap. I'm now going to be folding the whole strip in half and just pressing it into place. Once I've got my whole strip pressed in half, I'm now going to remove the adhesive backing and then place the folded edge of my binding along the edge of the canvas panel, and I'm going to run it all the way around, keeping that folded edge lined up along the edge of the canvas panel. I'm going to leave the corners until the very last. I'll put a wonder clip in to hold that securely in place and finish wrapping around the binding strip around the canvas panel. I'm now going to take my iron and press the binding strip in place, and I'll continue around the whole canvas panel, pressing that strip into place, and I'll leave the corners until last. I'm now going to be mitering my corners. I'm now going to flip it over and repeat the process for the other side. My design board is now complete, and now I'm going to check and see if I can put pins into it. And yes, I can. I just can't put them straight up and down. What I'm showing you here is a little bottle. It's a precision tip bottle from Recollections at Michael's. And what I did with those is I have filled my bottle with some Fabri-Tac or a liquid glue that's permanent, and just on my mitered corners I did put a little bit of that glue in along my mitered corners to hold them down. The other canvas panel that I used had an easel back on it, so what I did before putting my binding on, I removed the little easel back, set it aside, and I continued on with putting my binding on, and then after I replaced the easel back using some Suquang tape to hold it securely, and you can see the easel back does hold it nicely. My fabric sticks to it. When making my design boards, I used felt because I had it. I also chose to use the canvas panels because I thought they were a little bit thinner and stronger than the foam board that normally is used. The canvas panel I found you could iron on. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below the video, and thanks for watching.